Hello, this is Tip Top Gaming here today with another video. Now, what happens when you cross Magic the Gathering with the Marvel Cinematic Universe? You get Marvel the Gathering. And in today's video, I am going to be turning Thor, the original Thor movie, into a Magic the Gathering set. Now, there's a couple things I want to clarify. So, there might be changes or card additions to movies I've previously done, as I've either thought about them or just balancing acts. So, as you guys, most of you should know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is broken up into phases, and so instead of making one Marvel the Gathering set, I believe I'm going to be making one for each phase, and that really just is determined by how many cards I end up with. I'm planning on aiming for a set similar to Oath of the Gatewatch, which was a smaller set, and so I plan on doing 3 of those, one for each phase, and then obviously a 4th one when those movies start coming out. So my plan is that after I go through all the movies in a phase, then I'll do a video where I go back and I do some polishing, where I like adjust what's rare, what's mythic, all that, so it matches up with the numbers of a smaller set. And then I also will do some balancing so it makes more sense as a set, or maybe add some cards that were added along the way. So if you guys have any suggestions for cards for either Thor and any upcoming movies, or any movies I've done in the past, please leave those in the description down below. Why don't we hop right into this? So we're going to start with, obviously, the main hero, Thor. Now, similar to Captain America and Iron Man, he has a transformation card. So he is a 6-cost, 5/5 legendary creature as guardian god, and his name is Thor Hammerless. And it says, if Thor Hammerless is equipped with Mjolnir, transform Thor Hammerless into Thor, son of Odin. The reason it's so simple is because he kind of becomes useless, and so I thought he should become useless. Now, he's not completely useless, he is a 5/5, so, and that's because he obviously is still an Asgardian, he just doesn't have the power of Thor. But of course, when he is transformed, he becomes Thor, son of Odin, and he is a legendary creature as guardian god hero, because he uses his powers to save people, so he's now considered a hero. And he is now an 8/8 with flying, trample, and worthy, and I'll explain worthy here in just a second. Whenever a creature attacks, you may have Thor, son of Odin, fight that creature, so say someone attacks you with a 5/5, well, before damage happens, Thor can just go and murder it. And I thought this was really interesting. I was going to have him deal damage, like 2 damage, but then I'm like, well, you know what if Thor is just attacking everyone? Now, to make this ability more powerful, because obviously they're fighting, Thor doesn't just deal damage, they fight. However, whenever Thor, son of Odin, Thor, son of Odin gets +2/+2 whenever he kills a creature. So, let's say someone swings with 16 1/1s. Well, normally you'd only be able to block 7 of those before Thor dies. Also, it's a May trigger. But here, every time you kill him, he's getting +2/+2. And he's supposed to be very powerful. Like, he is one of the most powerful hero cards because, well, he's a god. And so I thought that just made a lot of sense. Alrighty, on to the next card. The next card is not a mythic. Normally I go over all the mythics first, but I thought I would explain what is Mjolnir, so that way that card makes a little bit more sense. So, it's a 5-cost legendary artifact equipment, and its name is Mjolnir, obviously. And it says, equip to worthy 3. So that's right now all worthy does, is it allows Mjolnir to be equipped. But you might be saying, how do I equip Mjolnir to someone who's not worthy, like Thor Hammerless? Well, you can pay 6 and equip it to specifically Thor Hammerless. So I wanted Mjolnir to be the flip condition, but I also didn't want you to be able to equip Mjolnir to someone else. Captain America's shield, I allowed you to equip it to someone else because, well, someone else could hold it, and other people do. But Mjolnir literally can't be held, so I thought I'd do that here. And then, of course, what does Mjolnir do? Equipped creature has +3/+0, flying, and first strike. Hey, so if you equip this to Thor, well, he technically already has flying, he does get +3 in first strike, making him an 11/8 with first strike, trample, and flying, which is terrifying. And then, whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may deal that much damage to all other creatures. So, if Thor manages to get through with Mjolnir in hand, that's 11 damage to all other creatures. That's pretty powerful. This card is meant to be powerful, and yeah, so this card and Thor might be changed in the polishing video, but right now that's where I have him settled. Next, we have a really fun card. I tried to make these cards fun, not just generic. We have Loki, Son of Odin. He is also a 6 cost. However, he starts as Son of Odin. So you'll notice that Thor was Son of Odin when he transformed, and Loki's Son of Odin here. And he's a legendary creature, Asgardian god. Now, he's a 4/4 with hexproof, and that's kind of important. And he has this fun ability. Whenever Loki deals damage to a permanent, you may have Loki gain any activated abilities of that permanent. If an ability costs or gains loyalty counters, put that many -1/-1 counters on Loki, Son of Odin. You may spend mana as though it was mana of any color. So the idea is, oh, he hits your Planeswalker? Well, now he has the loyalty abilities of that. And it doesn't say until end of turn. This might be something that gets an until end of turn. However, you'll see why that may not be as important. Now he does have hexproof, which makes him really powerful. So this is a very powerful card, but he also has a transformed side. And so Loki wasn't really less powerful before, but he transforms. You can pay 2 and transform Loki into Son of Lafi. So it's Loki, Son of Lafi. Of course, it's revealed that he's a frost giant, so he has this kind of form. And so he goes from an Asgardian god to a frost giant god villain. Lots of types there. And it's a 5/6 with trample. So the idea here is that technically you could transform Loki. Now this isn't an exile transform. Some of them are. This one is not. So from my understanding of the game rules, you could block something with Loki, Son of Lafi, or have them block something and then switch it to the other Loki, or vice versa. And then you can pay, and whenever he deals combat damage to a player, tap target creature that player controls. It doesn't untap as long as you control Son of Lafi. So the idea here is that as Loki goes on, he gets a little bit stronger. So if Loki stays in Son of Odin form, he starts gaining all these abilities. And then if he stays in Son of Lafi form, he starts freezing things. However, whenever you transform him, he either loses all of the abilities or all the creatures can untap. However, what's also interesting is that when Loki deals combat damage to a creature, he gains the ability, so they're not going to block with a good creature. But when Loki, Son of Lafi, deals damage to a player, you get to tap something, and since you can instant speed transform him, that makes him very menacing. As well, you can pay 2 and basically give him hexproof if you untap all creatures your opponent controls. So this guy is very powerful. I tried to make the Asgardians really powerful, but again, these might need to be balanced a little bit. But why don't we get into the other sort of villain, which is King Lafi, which is a 5-cost legendary creature frost giant villain. It's a 4/4. And whenever a non-land permanent your opponent controls are tapped, all frost giants you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. And then you can pay 4 and tap target creature you control to tap target non-land permanent. And then King Lafi can't be blocked this turn. So you tap something of yours, but then you also tap something of theirs, and then King Lafi can't be blocked. So he does a lot. You'll notice the Frost Giants kind of have a theme of things that are tapped. It doesn't have to be things your opponents control either. And we'll explore that a little bit more when we get into the other Frost Giants. And of course, Loki, Son of Lafi, also helps with that tapped ability. Next, why don't we get into the kind of opposite of King Lafi? We have Odin, King of Asgard. He's a 6-cost 5/5, and whenever he deals damage to a creature or planeswalker, exile it, so he's kind of exiling things. And then you gain 5 life, so he's very powerful. He's very simple, and that's because Odin, I mean, he banishes Thor and then goes to sleep. So people who didn't do too much in this, don't get that powerful cards, or at least their cards can be powerful, but they are simple, because that's what they were in the movie. Next, we have another very simple character, which is Frigga, Distressed Wife. Not super thrilled by that tag, but I couldn't come up with anything better. It's a 4-cost 3/4, and it says Asgardians you control get +1/+1, and if you control Odin, King of Asgard, they get an additional +2/+2. So, of course, this is synergy with Asgardians. Next, we have another uncommon, which is Heimdall Gatekeeper. Again, he's a gatekeeper. Yay, he gets a little bit more in some future movies, so he'll probably get that more explored later. And he's a 4-cost white 4/4 with first strike and vigilance, because, you know, he can see things, and of course he never lets his guard down unless he's purposely doing so. And when he purposely does so, you can pay 2 and tap him to make target creature not be able to block, so or not be able to attack, because he kind of controls who can go out and in. So that's kind of my way of saying, you don't get to go out. I'm trying to make everything here final, but I know in the polishing section I'm going to be making a decent amount of changes, just when the full set is done and I can look at the power level as a set. Well, why don't we get into more of the Frost Giants, because I think those are kind of fun. We have Hailstrom, which is one of the Frost Giants. He's a 4-cost blue and black Frost Giant, 4/4. And whenever a creature you control blocks a tapped creature, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So the creature blocking it gets +2/+2. And whenever Hailstrom blocks a creature, tap that creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So when he's blocking a creature, he's a 6/6 and taps that creature if it's not already tapped. And to make that ability not useless, it doesn't untap. So that's a very powerful card. Now we have Gundroth, which it's kind of I'm not sure if I like this card, but he says he's a 3-cost 2/2, and all tapped creatures lose all abilities. That includes your own. So I think all tapped creatures you control, or your opponents control, lose all abilities, might end up being what the final version of this card is. You'll know based on what it is that you're seeing in front of you. Then you can pay 2 and X and tap target creature converted mana cost X or less. So this is just an infinite way to tap things if you have the mana for that. Why don't we get into Raise, which is a 6-cost 4/4. And it says, whenever a creature your opponent controls is tapped by an ability or spell, you may pay 2. If you do untap that creature, you gain control of that creature until your next turn. So, hey, you're going to tap a creature? Nope, it's mine. So it basically turns all of your tap spells into gain control spells, assuming you pay 2 more. He does cost 6, but that is extremely powerful. We do have Frost Giant Soldier, which is a 3-cost 2/2, and it says it gets +1/+1 for each tapped creature you control. So you do get some benefit for having tapped creatures you control, which you would have a lot of tapped creatures when you attack. So I think that card works well. Now, another card, this is a rare card, that isn't exactly a Frost Giant, but does help them, is the Casket of Ancient Winters. This is seen in the movie. It's a 6-cost legendary artifact, and all non-Frost Giant creatures get -1/-1, including creatures you control, but if they're Frost Giants, they don't get affected. And then whenever Casket of Ancient Winters enters the battlefield, choose up to 4 target creatures. Tap those creatures. Those creatures don't untap as long as you control Casket of Ancient Winters. So this basically taps down 4 things. And, makes all non-Frost Giants smaller. Which overall makes your Frost Giants much more powerful than everyone else's creatures. Alrighty, since that was an artifact, why don't we talk about the rest of the artifacts I plan to talk about in this video. I think this is going to end up being a 2-part video, just because there's so many cards. This is the biggest addition I've done so far. So we have a 5-cost Wooburg legendary artifact, which is the Bifrost Bridge, and you can tap, pay 5, and target player exiles the top card of their library. You may put that card onto the battlefield, exile it at the beginning of your next turn. So this is a very fun ability. It's hard to get off because it's Wooburg, but it is really fun. Next up, of course, we have some of the crew from the overworld. You might notice that a lot of the creatures, Thor's side is being represented by white-red, and that's kind of Asgard when I'm considering Asgard. So the people that were mostly Asgardian, not mostly Asgardian, completely Asgardian, but stayed on Asgard, like Heimdall and Odin, they were completely white. And I'm making the people on Earth red because I said in an earlier video that blue-red was going to be science-y stuff. But I figure in order for you to be able to use this with, use these cards in a Thor deck, because they kind of have synergy there, you don't want to add blue, so I kept them just red. So one rare we have is Jane Foster, Anomaly Investigator. It's a 5-cost 4/4 legendary creature human. And Asgardians you control have haste. So she does boost Asgardians, even though she is not one, but she obviously investigates it. And then whenever she enters the battlefield, you may search your library and exile for a card named Thor Hammerless and put it into your hand. This one doesn't say graveyard, and that's kind of because the idea is he was exiled from Asgard, and so she finds him from exile. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting idea to put there. And then we have Darcy Lewis, who is a uncommon 3-cost 3/3. Whenever a non-human creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to its owner's controller. So this is kind of based on her not believing, like, I mean, she's very anti this whole gods thing. And so, you know, she kind of hurts you for playing them, but she also hurts your opponents for playing them. So if you play her with other scientists, she kind of benefits you. And then whenever she enters the battlefield, search your graveyard and or library for a card named Mjolnir and put it into your hand. So this is a typical ability. Now, Thor requires 2 objects to flip. Generally, there's cards in the set that I add that help him flip, like the Super Soldier Serum and Captain America. Here we have Darcy Lewis and Jane Foster. And then someone else who also helps, but not so much flipping. This is Erik Selvig, Voice of Reason. It's a 3-cost 3/3 with first strike, and equipment costs 2 less. Now, technically, Mjolnir's ability is an ability. It's not like equipped to Thor and then a cost. I did this very specifically so that this helps you equip Mjolnir to worthy people for 1, but doesn't help you flip Thor. Because he doesn't really believe until Thor is flipped. So that's kind of where that ideology came from. So that is it for the people on Earth. Now let's talk about the the group of 3. So we have Fandral, 1 of 3. It's a 5-cost 5/5, and whenever it blocks or is blocked by a creature, unequip all equipment attached to that creature, and equip it to Fandral, 1 of 3. So this is a fun ability. He uses a rapier, which can be used for like ignoring armor, and he's a master swordsman, so he can disarm people. And so this is kind of that idea that if they're attacking with a creature, well, before combat damage happens, I'm just going to take all your equipment. And so I thought that was a really fun mechanic. Next, we have Volstagg, 1 of 3. It's a 6-cost 4/4 trample, and whenever Volstagg 1 of 3 attacks, all creatures with power less than Volstagg 1 of 3 can't block. And of course, this is a 6-cost because that's pretty powerful, but it's also a really big ability because if you can boost him, because he has an Asgardian, he does get those boosts, or if you use a boost spell, you can basically make it so nothing can block any of your Asgardian. And then we have Hogan, 1 of 3, who's a 4-cost 4/4, and it says all attacking Asgardians get +1/+0 and trample. So this helps, obviously, Volstagg with his ability to make things and not be able to block. And then you can pay 4, and until Hogan, 1 of 3, gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Pretty generic ability. It was really hard balancing these. He's probably one of the more boring ones. And then we have Civ, 4th of 3, which is kind of a play on the fact that it's the Warriors of 3 plus Civ. And so she's a 6-cost legendary creature as Guardian 6/6. And whenever she enters the battlefield under your control, she fights target creature your opponent's control. That is not a may. You must do that. Whenever Civ 4th of 3 fights a creature, if the fought creature has greater power than Civ 4th of 3, she gains Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn. And then you can pay 2 red and 2 white, and she fights that creature. So basically, this is how she like stabbed the Destroyer in the back, even though it's a much bigger creature. She's showing her power, and so she fights things. Of course. Alright, so we have one last card for this episode. Of course, it will be a second episode because there are so many cards and we're already at the 22-minute mark. I'm sure this probably got cut down a little bit. But we have Godly Lightning Arc. It's a 3-cost instant and it says deal 3 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. If you control a god hero, so if you control Thor, deal 5 damage instead. So you deal 5 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. This is just supposed to be like his, I'm striking with lightning. I'm sorry I just split this in 2. It was just such a big movie with lots of little characters, lots of characters and items, so I had to split it into 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, of course leave your feedback. I'd love to see it all. I hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in the next one. Bye.